Today's date is April 14th, 2023. My name is Sara Smith. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a professor of history at American River College. So let's start off by establishing some of the basics. What's your full name? What are your pronouns? And what's your date of birth?
Ashley Morgan Silver. Pronouns are she, they. Date of birth, August 26, 1994.
Okay, can you tell me a little about yourself? What are your interests and hobbies? What do you like to do?
I like to cook. I animation, anime, video gaming, cycling.
What do you like to cook?
Stir fries, soups, and that kind of thing.
So where did you grow up and where do you live now?
I am originally from Palo Alto, and I moved to Fremont, and had to move because of bullying. But I in Fair Oaks since I was 8.
And when did you leave Palo Alto?
August 22nd, 2002.
So can you tell me how you identify with regard to your social identities, broadly speaking?
Semi-romantic, lesbian, non-binary, trans woman.
Anything else about your social identities?
Jewish, civil, that sounds.
Jewish, disabled. I'm also Jewish. What disabilities?
Autism spectrum disorder, social communication disorder, and my right hand's a little from an injury.
So can you talk a little bit about what being non-binary and a trans woman means to you?
A specific kind of thing here. Or broadly.
Just if there's anything that comes to mind about like what it means to you specifically, combining those two identities, non-binary and a trans woman.
Yeah, well, it's girl, but also kind of more adjacent to girl, kind of both at the same time instead of a mishmash sort of way.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what does trans femininity mean to you, and how would you distinguish trans femininity from cis femininity, if you would?
Kind of more police, but also
So you said something about being policed, trans femininity being more policed?
Yeah.
Than cis femininity.
Yeah.
If you're trans feminine, then you have to act in specific ways, and you can't veer from those ways.
yeah, and which um um actually kind of fascinating as a trans woman from um so like um yeah, Ashkenazi and Balkan descent. So it's well outside that sort of WASP ideal.
Hmm.
So
You said, I'm sorry, you said Balkan, and what was the other descent? Welsh.
Ashkenazi Balkan.
Ashkenazi Welsh?
Balkan.
Balkan. Oh, I don't know where I got Welsh from. Okay. So you think there are like expectations about like what it means to be feminine that are rooted in being a Balkan and Ashkenazi descent. So yeah.
And the part of it features and rate of like body hair. It's technically from like the like Anglo-Saxon Protestant ideal. That's how this is a standard.
Mm. So what does being demi-romantic and a lesbian mean to you? Whatever comes to mind.
Well, basically, girls and demi-romantic. I mean, that's only very important to people I kind of come to know. So it's and then it's they kind of frustrating sometimes, kind of a relief.
You said sometimes it's can be frustrating, and sometimes it feels like a relief.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit?
Just the thing that kind of like contrast with like some sort of like it's, ideal of faces that would only expect with like a relationship and stuff like that. But also um, uh, um, um, that like and I guess that I can focus on other things. It's kind of hard to word.
So my next question, if that's okay, is, and if you don't mind talking about this, what was your coming out experience like?
Well,
it's a big question, I know.
Yeah, but in like 2017, and actually, kind of after like life is changing for this storm and really kind of being with like certain characters a little too much. I kind of was in the closet for a year and a half because
Oh, you said you were in the closet for a year and a half
yeah,
after you realized that you were trans woman, and that's when you were 17.
It was when I was 17, so
2017.
like 22.
Say that again, that last part.
So 22.
Oh, okay.
And there's some like kind of initial ignorance that I, it's really kind of easy to mistake for outright hostility, and I kind of eventually just kind of gave up, and kind of basically presenting sometime around like February 2019.
Are you out to your family and your friends?
Yes. And it was my aunt friend that she came around.
Who came around? Say that. Or your mom?
Yeah.
Oh.
And my dad had like a much harder time with it. Like he really didn't really like there was like a while where he just straight up didn't refer to me directly.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I kind of been ability to really have or acknowledge. Yeah.
Was he angry? Or was it mainly that sort of psychological inability to kind of handle it?
I think it was the latter.
Mm.
I mean, and eventually he just, I mean, he eventually started to just running through it, just a pet name, well, like, but when really just use like your pronouns or call me Ashley or anything.
Oh, he wouldn't call you Ashley?
Yeah. And so, and really, yeah, I mean, and he only really started until with name and pronouns until like after head bottom surgery. So yeah, which is kind of a trip. I mean, it's like and it's like because like, are you really coming around, or are you just trying to be like the dementia allegations from the waitress?
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? So, are you trying to like avoid allegations from the waitress?
Or like or it's like yeah, like basically well, basically like um, uh, basically just it's like really coming around, or is he just kind of um, 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 like kind of just going around with like um, um, like social um, like added social perceptions.
I was worried about social conceptions.
Yeah, um, like like that. Um, but at least he's using him and pronouns. So I mean, and my um, my um, sister is fine with is like very supportive, and
I was going to ask next if you had siblings. You have one sister?
two younger sister down, and the older sister that lives in Portland, Oregon. And they and they're live and pretty supportive in um, um, actually, she's also queer.
Is this your sister in Portland or your younger sister?
My younger sister.
Oh, okay.
Um,
That's good to have a queer sister, or
yeah.
maybe queer sister.
And my older sister I mean, she's I mean, it's kind of pretty difficult with her. I mean, she's um, I mean, she kind of supportive. Then, but she's also like posting a lot of you know and she also kind of like neoliberal Facebook mom posting like Babylon Bee stuff on Facebook. That kind of
Wait, what's Babylon Bee?
basically very it's like right wing satire style, very transphobic, and like and yeah, so like she's like made some kind of very pseudo or careful comments about like transition, especially surgeries.
So I was talking about the stuff. Is it emotionally difficult, your relationship with your family, or just sort of talking about how they reacted? Do you find it to be hard?
There's just a few kind of lingering issues and anxieties about that. I mean, for the most part, nowadays at least.
So we left off talking about family stuff. Is there anything you wanted to add before we move on?
I kind of forgot the exact kind of subject.
Oh, it's okay. Why don't we just move on to the next section? So you mentioned at the start that you have a couple of disabilities. Would you mind talking a little bit more about your disabilities and how they impact you on a sort of daily basis?
Autism spectrum disorder. Just,
You called it social communication.
yeah, and also social communication disorder.
Okay.
So basically, basically, yeah, social anxiety, and kind of issues of like low volume, um, um, getting to the point of a conversation. Brain doesn't really it's kind of the brain's kind of a lot faster than my mouth at times.
So you
Yeah.
put it this way a couple minutes ago off camera. You said your brain is working, communicating faster than your sort of ability to verbalize what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Um,
And kind of barrier to communication in general. Makes it again like a creative likeness work, even if there's kind of a bit of a script. So I um, um, so it's not really like a hindrance, like with, like in like performance or anything like that. I took a improv course last semester and did pretty well with that.
so if you're performing,
Yeah.
like acting or something like that, then the
Acting,
communication
singing.
comes a little easier.
Yeah.
So would you say that your disabilities influence your identity as queer and trans and vice versa? So what have your experiences been like specifically as a disabled and a queer or trans person?
Well, with, I mean, so I think we need to with the social communication disorder. Times it's um, um, it is somewhat useful when it um, when it when it comes to like my voice in passing sometimes. It's like when
Oh, because you're more light spoken
I
or soft spoken in you?
just um, just I, like when I speak like low volume or just or just but unverbal at times. sheet aware of.
I'm sorry, can you just clarify that a little bit, what you just said? Elaborate a little bit?
I like when I just kind of when my when my voice is kind of be a lot more like quiet than normal, or if I just can't really or so kind of speaking at all, it's kind of less steady passing words away about.
Oh yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And then the spectrum disorder, it's like I mean, there's like a correlation of what, like 8.75% of those on the spectrum identifying as trans. So it's
Say that again. You said 8.75%.
So like 1 in 11. There is like a correlation of the spectrum identifying as trans.
So you think the fact that you have autism spectrum disorder is sort of connected to your transness, but it's hard to say.
Yeah.
So you are a community college student at ARC, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what you're studying? And are you part-time or full-time?
I'm part-time and initially thinking about it, transferring to Sac State, and I'm kind of went back to graduating for like employment after getting a TESOL certificate didn't really work out. And
can you explain what that is?
Like basically teaching as a second language. There's like I think of like 6 classes that you had to get your higher in, and I like a C in one of them because of like my error correction. A bit more technological than was probably acceptable. And I could set up, to like do like some kind of thing related to that initial pursuit. So like I
teaching English as a second language.
Yeah, so like I was a TA for for like an ESL summer school program. So I just wrote it, and then was like an English writing tutor on campus, but I guess but I kind of fizzled out a bit So, it's like I was pretty good at that, and was even recommended to people, but like um, then we got like a new supervisor who was my GPA at the time was like 2.996, and it was like I know 3 or higher. That was the job, but that was too small of like anything to actually be reasonable bar. But my the um, had a bit of an issue with that.
You had an issue because your GPA was a little too low?
Like like um um like 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 not even like a little too low, like the barest hairline under that that they sure was not an issue and would recently be an issue. But
oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah, and so then
So are you trying to figure out what your plan of action is now?
yeah, it was well, for a while it was I was an HM major, and
What?
an HM hospitality management
Oh,
major, and they and you know it's pandemic hit, so most so like a lot so things were just kind of online and more only limited to the technical side of things. So I was like pretty bad and did well enough, but and like I took a food prep course that I did like that kind of course where you do everything else and
through the culinary department, you took a food prep course.
Yeah, and
did you like that course?
Well, well, I for the most part, but because the instructor really did not really know how to handle a trans and neurodivergent student.
Mm. Oh, so you had a hard time in that class because you're trans and neurodivergent? Like,
Yeah.
Not you having a hard time, but they
Yeah.
didn't know how to handle you as your whole self.
Yeah.
They weren't doing enough to accommodate and include you.
Misgendered a lot.
In that class?
Yeah.
By the faculty member?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what's your experience been with being misgendered, and how does that make you feel?
Obvious. And it was just like where it's constantly correcting him, and other students were constantly correcting him. And
It sounds incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
So your professor wasn't doing anything wasn't trying very hard, right, to use the correct
It wasn't really
pronouns and wasn't helping
wasn't
other
very
students use the
that,
correct pronouns.
and like we just pretty it's, here um, um, in general, I mean, I can I um,
Did you stay in that class?
I I uh, um, um, well, um, yeah, mostly because focused on like the cooking and things weren't really an issue till it was like I dropped this course at a W territory.
So you kind of had to stick it out, even though it was kind of like, and not, to say the least, not an inclusive environment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just, and would really really um, uh, and straight out neglected the whole camel's nose thing when teaching me.
What's the camel's nose thing?
Oh, it's a um, it's a I want to like you know um, you know he'll do like English as a second language, learning teach that kind of thing where like you know he, like you know feed the camel from the tent, stick a nose in, and got to let and learn kind of on their own and be able to really develop that sort of thinking skills and everything like that. And you kind of show me like different like the correct way to like take like dice and onions that professionally, but really not not in a way that made it stick. And I ended up learning more just from like cooking, just from watching those like Epicurious how to prepare every blank,
I've watched some of those videos.
Yeah.
Or something similar. Yeah. So how has ableism and transphobia and homophobia shown up in the classroom in other ways? I mean, that's a pretty stark example, or a pretty intense example of this one faculty member just constantly misgendering you and not making sure that other students didn't misgender you, right? So how has that shown up in other ways in your classroom?
I was had been misgendered by like a counselor for seeking aid for me.
Oh, a counselor misgendered you, even though it's pretty. I mean, even though your name is in the system, your pronouns are in the system, the counselor was still misgendering you. Did you have to correct the counselor?
Yeah.
And what was their response when you corrected them?
I mean, and when you have like a from the building, just kind of again to like the people behind the desk.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry. But then also kind of extended me to the people behind the desk when creating a form for me.
So the same counselor?
Yeah.
Misgendered you a second time?
Yeah.
After being corrected?
Yeah.
And did they express remorse? Did they seem to want to learn to do better?
This was yeah. I mean, apologize. It was kind of like about a year and a half ago.
Mm.
I mean, I'd like to think she was trying to be better, but yeah. And that's fairly and I mean, I had a kind of indirect kind of general transphobia in the classroom as well. Not, me, but and since I was closeted at the time, but I did have like a.
Was it like students making comments in the classroom that are transphobic?
Yeah, I was in a debate course, and one of the things for like one of the subjects for one of the group debates in the course was transgender athletes.
Oh. Okay, so they made students debate whether or not trans people should be able to play the sport of that.
And
with no thought given to how that might make people feel who are trans in the classroom, debating their basic rights.
Yeah,
and did the faculty member sort of acknowledge at all that could be problematic ultimately? No. And you were in the closet, so you didn't feel like you could say anything at that point.
And not just in the closet, on one of the in that debate.
Did the professor, I don't know what their gender is, did they assign students to play a particular side in the debate?
Yeah.
And were you assigned to a side that was transphobic?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry that happened. That's really awful.
There was like another kind of ended up along with a couple of other students during a Title IX.
Oh, what happened?
So there was a on-campus anti-vaxxer protest last semester. So and a couple of other from like the community of Discord. Anyways,
the Los Rios queer Discord.
Yeah, we're kind of in engaging them in a debate, and I was kind of testing the waters for a bit because there's a lot of sort of in the whole kind of that there is like a lot of ableism and transphobia, and how that kind of makes its way through. And I so
You know, in the anti-vaxxer world, you think transphobia and ableism.
so you know, it's kind of what is so I kind of uh, um, and I tested the water for like a joke comment. It's like, you know, going up to them, it's like, why the hell would I be against vaccines? They gave me these awesome tits.
Okay.
Yeah, and
That's a pretty bold joke. Okay, continue.
you know, well, I mean, with a lot, I mean, because in a lot of like anti-vaccine, there is like a lot of you know, phobia, especially involved like vaccines and 5G.
Oh, like in their propaganda, there's explicit transphobia about what the vaccine will do to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and then of course, like one of the this made a transphobic comment, and one of and not one of the and it wasn't and the faculty member in that particular protest wasn't the one who made like a transphobic remark to me, but very much sort of fighting by that.
So there was a faculty member in the anti-vaxxer protest who just sort of let that comment be made without intervening or saying anything.
Yeah, and it turned out and I mentioned that on the Discord, and was and remember, I think it's Julia kind of recognized that person as like someone working in the health department, specifically person who's kind of in charge of like handing out just kind of like I don't know, it's like handing out condoms and period supplies, and abiding by just transphobic.
The health department at ARC?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like transphobic rhetoric, and and which in that position can raise a lot of issues. Didn't I had a meeting with Adeline about that stuff.
So, how do you feel about how that process played out?
Well, I haven't heard anything back.
And when was this?
It was like last October.
Okay, so it sounds like they didn't pursue. They potentially had a conversation with you and then didn't pursue any kind of didn't pursue the complaint and didn't tell you that they didn't pursue the complaint.
Yeah, and like and it's like they had me like identify who like and like the woman who made that transphobic remark to me as well, and there's even like a picture and labeling. Was in like an article about the protest on the college paper, and nothing.
So that must have felt like ultimately a pretty disempowering process, one that indicated something about how the college doesn't support disabled students and also trans students, right?
Yeah, and and especially since like and just like just dealing with protests in general, and not just trans women, but pretty just and then just nothing coming up of that. So
this is sort of kind of going back in time a little bit, but is there anything about your experience, with your disabilities and being queer growing up? Like, how did that? Is there anything you want to talk about your sort of like early schooling, how that was influenced by your identities? I know you said that. That's a big question. Once again, a big question. You said that you were bullied and you had to move from Fremont to. That's when your family moved to Sacramento.
Yeah.
Was that? Were you bullied because of your disabilities, or what was going on there?
I think that might have been kind of part of it, but but also so but like Jason and
Kids would chase you.
there's just there was a kid Jason, or no, not Jason, Jared.
Jason. Oh, name. Okay.
Name Jared.
Okay.
It was, and I guess it's like well, clearly not really all that well.
Mm-hmm.
And like kind of like really laugh at when you do like a bloody nose. One time tried to tie me up in a closet and light me up.
Oh my god! Did the school didn't really? What did the school do in response?
It wasn't school.
Oh, it was in the neighborhood.
It was in the neighborhood.
Oh.
And we pretty much moved the next day.
Wow, that's a pretty traumatic episode. Huh? Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about that, or about your schooling in general, like middle school, high school, with regard to your identity as trans or queer, disabled?
Well, I mean, I kind of well, in elementary school at Charles Peck, it really I was like a neurodivergent student, and I was kind of and I was kind of stimming like my kind of my
You were
my
stimming?
animals,
You were stimming?
you know, well, well, sitting down at an assembly, and I got suspended for like two because of that, and had to write an apology letter.
For stimming? In this way that involved?
Yeah, basically
Oh,
like that. In the
wow.
yeah,
Yes.
and the principal told my mom like for like the day was suspended to make that the worst day of my life.
The principal said that
Yeah,
they wanted that to be the worst day of your life.
yeah.
Jesus.
And then and, high school it was um, 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 right, and I had like speech therapy, um, IEPs and stuff like that. An accommodation.
You weren't out as queer or trans, right, in high school. You
Well,
came out when you were a little older. Is that right or no?
I didn't identify as queer in high school.
Oh, you did.
And you know what? I mean, it was kind of a the experience in like late aughts and early 2010, 2008 to 2012.
Oh, that's when you were in high school.
Yeah, and like I mean, there was like I mean, there was kind of like an expectation where um, 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 like don't mention queerness in like writing an essay context, and like there's like a anonymous survey questions in health class, but that's it. And it's like I kind of remember getting into an argument with my history teacher about James Buchanan being gay.
James Buchanan.
15th president. And pretty hostile to that idea, to say the least. So, but and yeah, I mean, there was I mean, there's like a and I kind of got I also got yelled at by my French teacher for kind of participating in the Day of Silence. I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
A day of silence against homophobia? Or
Yeah.
Yeah. And your French teacher yelled at you?
Yeah. And so it's like, what? I'm writing French on a whiteboard, and I mean, it's like it's like um it's, it's like and it's like I kind of been like French teacher, so I definitely communicating. What's the problem here? You know?
So have you had experiences in community college? And if you want to talk about high school a little bit too, that's okay. Have you had experiences in which your teacher, your professor was inclusive of the experiences of queer and trans people, inclusive, right, created an inclusive environment for students as well, and at the same time also was inclusive of the needs of disabled students?
Yeah, I mean, I had a positive experience with like my voice teacher.
Is this in high school or
in college?
Oh, in college. Okay.
Yeah.
And why was that a positive experience?
Well, I mean, just kind of very kind of accommodating. Um, 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 really, but also yeah, having like meeting via Zoom to like talk about like issues with like voices beforehand, needs, and like finding the exact kind of key I'm in, and like you know and some like and like marrying that some like trans singers like Lord and Grace and Sarah Rose.
You said trans singers?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a nice experience that you had.
Yeah.
Are any other experiences you want to talk about? What do you think, I guess, in general, faculty can do to make queer and trans students, as well as disabled students, feel respected in the classroom?
Respect us and gender us properly for one.
Respect you and gender you properly.
Yeah, not just and like don't entertain transphobic talking point as something that can be defended. Trust us to be able to learn. And
is that comment stemming from your experience as a disabled student and how you've been treated?
Yeah, and like in like that cooking course, but I also had taken like a algebra course, and there was like and like I couldn't really kind of grasp this like shortcut when it came to like simplification, when it like the other thing that's not an equation. I think the term. I know. But it's like I'm like doing like the longer like kind of the longer ways, not like the shortcut ways, and it's like and the feedback was like nice arithmetic, show me algebra, and I'm like doing algebra just
So sort of talking down to you in a way.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is to include queer and trans topics in the course curriculum for you to be included and seen at ARC.
Important and would to see like some courses that kind of touch on like topics kind of not just like stuff everything into like mention of like intersectionality or a particular unit in the course.
Like center it more.
Yeah. Yeah. Like some just centered talks would be good. Like not just kind of history and other things, but also media would be fun.
Media?
Yeah.
Oh, so like including some queer and trans media?
Yeah. Like and maybe questions about material, you know.
What material? Sorry.
Not material, but some kind of creating kind of opportunities for the courses. Just that would be kind of cool to see, like
opportunities for like courses that focus more on queer and trans topics and include different kinds of media.
Yeah. Just kind of make for a more inclusive environment.
Would you take classes if they were offered, if they focused on more classes?
Yeah, I mean, because there's like a lot of I mean, because there is kind of it's for like a course, especially when it comes to like literature and film, graphic novel, like the whole kind of there's a lot of potential there. So.
What do you think the college should do to make trans and queer students feel more included on campus in general? You've mentioned some things, right, already, I think, over the course of the interview. Talked about the curriculum, talked about the classroom.
Curriculum, kind of kind of enforcing kind of less room for a double efficacy in aspects that are harmful. Putting and just kind of being more inclusive with like in terms of like bathrooms.
Can you talk a little bit about how important queer community is for your own sense of well-being at the college?
It's yeah, having like just community with like the GSA and the campus Discord and stuff like that.
Has that really helped you?
And I just in terms of like activities and friendships and stuff like that.
So queer community is really important for that stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe one final question. In general, what makes you excited about being a college student?
Maybe writing classes, just just I'm sure that's something else.
Well, it's okay. Is there anything else you would like to add? Just in general, and return to any topics, anything you haven't said that you'd like to say?
I don't